just got done flying my newly built DJI FPV drone, FPV quadcopter, FPV freestyle race, whatever you want to call it. Just got done flying it for maybe like the third or fourth time. I don't have a lot of time on it, but over the last couple of weeks I told you guys that I was having some difficulties, or had some difficulties actually getting my gear, had to reorder my gear. I was kind of like stockpiling parts and buying all different types of frames because I knew what I wanted to do. So I built 5-inch frames, I bought 5-inch frames, I bought 3-inch frames, I bought tiny whoop frames with the intent of building a different size DJI system with using the different cameras that you can get. I thought about going with the Nebulous, the Caddx Vista, and the air unit, the big air unit. Now I know I'm late to the game on this, and a lot of guys have already jumped, and you know, either they're camera drone reviewers that have jumped into FPV, or you know, a lot of the FPVers out there who have already done a ton of videos on the DJI system, and I'm late to the game on this one. But I just want to kind of get back to you and tell you my first experiences, or my first thoughts with my first experiences for the DJI system after flying analog for like, I don't know, I think I was flying analog for months, man. I probably beginning this year I started flying analog and really not advancing or getting anywhere with it because I was just too intimidated by it or too scared of it. Just not being able to see what I was doing at all times, coming from years of flying a remote control aircraft where you always had line of sight of the quad or the drone or whatever you were flying. You always had line of sight of the aircraft. This was a whole different experience for me. So yeah, built this little 3-inch, and I gotta tell you, I love it. So first experience with this was getting it out to the field for the first time to do like a pre-flight, or pre-long flight setup to see if there were any issues that may appear once I got up in the air, shaking, vibration, battery issues or anything like that. And I just remember like plugging this thing in for the first time outside and putting it down over my eyes, and was like, whoa, whoa. So I had spent months flying analog, and with analog, it's like you're watching like Betamax videos on an old black and white TV from like the 60s or something. Like, it was just choppy. Even though I had a high resolution camera like a Caddx camera, or I also had a run cam on there, it just didn't look that great. It was enough to get you through what you had to do, but it wasn't like watching TV while you were flying this aircraft. And I got used to it, I guess. I got used to playing with it, flying it around, doing different things with it. I got a little bit of confidence up where I tried to fly between this little shed back here underneath the trees and over the creek, and then come back out the other side. Even knowing that there's going to be a whole bunch of static and a whole bunch of dropout, you just learn to fly straight through it. Now, fast forward to today. After flying this for about 4 or 5 flights, I don't have that many flights on it. Like I said, a lot of them were pre-set up flights, and then just getting the quad, how it's going to fly, because pretty much what I did was I took all the components out of my my analog 3-inch Aero race frame, which kind of put the propellers out here in front of the camera, and just swapped them all over. So just making sure there was nothing that changed with the flight characteristics. I mean, I've been my confidence is up like 1,000%. Like, just taking this thing up, because there's things that I could do with this that I couldn't do with the analog system, and I don't know why, because I'm kind of new to FPV. But if I took it up higher than these apartment buildings, I don't know, maybe I got up like 60-70 feet, you start to get that breakup. Everything starts to break up, so you're like, I don't want to do a looper roll now because the battery drop, not if the battery drops out, but if the video drops out and I don't see where I'm going or know what direction it's going to come out of, I just don't want to do it. So I would get it way up, video would start to drop out, then I would just level it off and bring it back down and fly it out. This thing is so clear, man. I shot this thing up into the sky. It looks super high through the field of view of this lens. I was up there was some geese flying around. I was like, wow, I need to get this thing down because I don't know how high it is, but it never had a dropout at all. And this is the Caddx system. The Caddx system is a little bit different from the full size air unit. It has 1 antenna. I'm not sure if the range is different from the Caddx system, but what I can tell you is, power-wise, I am 100% liking this little 3-inch. It's like the best little quad that I have ever flown, and it's not like I've flown a lot, but compared to what I've had before, man, I like it. So let's just quickly go through this setup, because this is another reason why I kind of flipped over to FPV. It's totally it's not that expensive. It's like an inexpensive hobby to get into. Like I said, I've flown remote control airplanes that cost, and I'm sure you can make this as expensive as you want to get, but I've flown remote control airplanes and helicopters for the better part of 15 years. The most expensive helicopters I've had, like a Synergy, or a miniature aircraft Fury, I mean, all decked out with like every possible accessory, all high-end stuff, could run me as close to $2,000. And when you crash it, you don't want to have what they call a re-kit, where that means you just destroyed. I've literally seen remote control helicopters crash, throw the battery, the engine's still running, and pretty much blend itself into nothing left when it was done. But let's say it was a light crash. Let's say it was just a tip over with a remote control helicopter. You're still looking at least $100, $150 for a set of blades. This little thing right here, I'll go through the how much I spent on each part, but this little thing right here couldn't have cost me more than, $90 to build without the air unit. And if I didn't use the air unit, throw in another $40, $50, depending on what VTX and camera you want to use. But it was a really inexpensive build, and what I really like about this is when I went to my first FPV race, these guys are plowing these things into the ground at like 100 miles an hour, and they were just using some mode where if it was upside down, they would flip it right side up and then take off again. I was like, man, you can't destroy them. So with this build, like I said, this is an inexpensive build. It's not like, all the high-end parts. I kind of try to find middle of the line parts, components that are giving me the best bang for my buck. This frame is a frame that I found on Amazon. It's called a U-Smile, no brand name. A lot of those frames on Amazon are actually clones of brand name frames. So I found one that my 5-inch frame is like a clone of some other frame. It cost me like $25, the real 5-inch frame costs like $60 just for the frame alone. So this was a U-Smile. I was looking for something with some very thick carbon fiber components and possibly unibody, because all those screws and nuts and parts where you kind of bolt them together are the breaking points when you crash these things, and sometimes you just can't track down the replacement part. So unibody frame means that the whole bottom frame is one piece, and this is a 4mm unibody frame, so it's pretty beefy. I also paid a little bit more for this one because it came with all these little orange TPU printed parts, which made it look cool. I don't know what the function of them is other than giving it a little bit of accent, but I liked it, so I bought it. So I paid about $20 for the frame, and I'll leave all of the parts that I bought in the links to the parts that I bought in the description below. I paid like $20 for the frame. These are Ready to Sky, which seem to be very reliable based on Amazon reviews. Ready to Sky 1507s. I went with the biggest, beefiest motor that I can go with. I know a lot of guys are talking about weight savings and all that other stuff, because it is sometimes valuable to save weight so you can get a little bit more life out of your battery or not have to run as much current. But I went with the biggest because I wanted something that was going to be able to power through any mistakes that I made. So 1507 Ready to Sky motors. These are the props that I had on the 3-inch Arrow. I'm still not like all knowledgeable about different props and the pitch angles and what they can do. Again, they kind of just look cool, and I knew that well, for racing they did well, so I thought they would probably do well for this. Not sure if I should invest in something that's more set up for freestyle than racing, but they do well, and I don't have any issues when I take this thing up and let it drop and then come out of it and then power back up. There's no shake or no roll or no stutter, so I like them. So those are about $30. So 20 for the frame, 30 for the motors. Props, you get like bags of them for like $10, so they're not even worth adding into the cost. The flight controller and speed controller are the Mamba F405s, which cost about $37 for the stack, which is awesome because you can spend $50 for either of those components separately, depending on which one you want to go with. So I like the fact that the Mamba has a lot of I guess upgradability. It's got 4 UART accessory ports, and it gives you the ability to put like LEDs and alarms and stuff on it. It's got a lot of accessories that you can add to it when it comes to adding on, like if you want to add a GPS or something, depending on what kind of quad you're building. So for $35, like I said, that's not a bad deal. And I went with the Caddx Vista on this one, which was about $150. So that was the most expensive part of this whole build. Batteries, I shop at a place called Hobby King. These are Turnigy 850s. I also have everything from like a 450 all the way up to a 1500, just because again I'm new to this and didn't know which battery I was going to need. But a lot of guys said go with the 850s or smaller for a 3-inch, and they work well. I get about 4 minutes of decent flight of me doing some punch outs and then some flips, and then bringing it back down and pulling out of that. And when I take it and put it back on the charger, I've only used about 40% of the battery. I never try to drain my batteries less than 50%, just an old school habit. So yeah, very inexpensive build, and if I smash it or crash it, the repair cost could possibly be replacing out a new camera for the Vista, which I believe costs about $50. Not that expensive when you're talking about breaking stuff when it comes to quads, man. Like, I would happily pay $50 for a new camera over, like I said, $150 or even more if you crash your DJI camera drone, right, and don't have the refresh care for one of these. And I'm still getting some amazing video quality. Like, the trade-off for the Vista is that it doesn't have a DVR on it. So if there is any drop in image clarity, it's because I flew into an area where the signal was being interfered with, and you start to get, I got this set up with this thing called focus mode, where it tries to keep the center as clear as possible, where the outsides start to get a little bit pixelated. So you'll see that in the DVR if that happens with this. But with the Air units, they have a built-in DVR, so you get that crystal clear image quality. Stabilization. I know a lot of guys are strapping GoPros onto their quads, and I have done that with the Cinewhoop. And the reason I put the GoPro on the Cinewhoop is because the way that you fly the Cinewhoop is you're flying it slow, and you're trying to make corrections. When you're trying to fly through a house or through some trees, you're making corrections to, like, I'm a little bit too far left, up or down, and the stabilized video footage takes out all those corrections, right? You don't see every little thumb movement while I'm doing this, trying to make this thing fly straight and go through a gap. But with this, stabilization may not be that big of an issue because it's not being flown slow and I'm not making a lot of corrections. So what I put, like a lot of guys are putting like additional cameras on this thing. They're putting the Insta360 Go on there, another $150. I don't know. Most of the time, if I feel like my video is a little bit too shaky, especially when I started flying these for the first time, and all of my corrections were just like, I was just like, my hands were shaking, so you could see me thumbing it left and right every time I try to make a correction. I would just drop it into the editing software and stabilize it and call it a day. Adding an additional cost, like I said, if I plow this thing in, that's another $150 I'm going to be out if I break an additional camera. Now, I might strap one on the 5-inch when I get it, just to get the experience, because like I said, when I look at the video quality that comes out of a Cinewhoop with a stabilized camera on it, it's absolutely amazing. And especially with the GoPro, like I got a GoPro 7, it almost slows the video down and makes it like buttery smooth while giving it that stabilization. So it gives it a different effect that you would probably have to do in post with your editing software. This you're probably just going to see full speed. I could probably slow it down a couple frames in post, but you're going to see full speed. And if there's any correction or mistakes that I make with my thumbs, you're going to see it in this. But I don't care. Like I said, I'm not trying to add additional cost to something that could potentially be, broken into a million pieces when I misjudge the distance between the fork and a tree. And I'm not trying to, like a lot of guys have stacks and stacks and stacks of GoPros, and then they're starting to strip the cases off of them to lighten them up. And I'm not trying to add additional cost to this hobby. So yeah, just wanted to get back to you. I know I've been, talking about this system for a while, and I wanted to give you my I want to say first impressions, but it's not really my first impressions because I have flown this thing at least 4 times before I shot a video with it, because I didn't want to crash it on video or just waste my time talking about something when I had no idea what this thing could do. But what I can tell you is, as of right now, this is my new favorite toy. I mean, literally, I love this thing. I love the way that it flies. I love the way that it, like, once you get up in the air and you get up and you take it up really high and then you do a nosedive and just like it just reminds me of, the skill that it took to fly remote control aircraft with the first person view of being in the cockpit when you were pulling off with some of those maneuvers. There's some things that I just can't do with this. Like, I had to get used to the fact that this is not an airplane and it is not a remote control helicopter where I have full collective pitch. So with a helicopter, I can control the elevation upside down or right side up. And with an airplane, almost similarly, you can fly it upside down because you use your ailerons and your control surfaces to keep the nose up so you can fly it upside down. This, when you flip it upside down, if you have the power on, what it wants to do is power itself directly down to the ground. And that is a problem if you're trying to learn and you do a roll and you got the throttle up. It's going to flip over and it's going to shoot straight down to the ground and could potentially, make a little crater there depending on how high you were or how big or how heavy your quad is, maybe even damage a battery. So yeah, there are some learning curve that I still have to kind of get over, because I got to remember when I do flips and rolls to kill that power and let it hang for a little bit off of its own inertia while I use the roll and pitch to still be able to control it, and then get out of it and get back on the throttle before it stalls. It won't stall, but it might give you a little bit of a flutter if your gyro is oversensitive. And right now I don't even get into PID tuning. I just go out and fly it, and this thing is flying excellently. So I mean, 15 minutes, I know I've been rambling on. I'm definitely gonna get back to you. It's just been crazy weather, and the work schedule kind of keeps me from getting out, and it's getting darker sooner. And as you can see in the time that I've been talking, it's gotten darker already. But I'll get back to you soon with my other quads. Like I said, I got a 5-inch that I'm building. I've got a little Cinewhoop that I built on an analog system that I still want to talk about. Not a Cinewhoop, a mini whoop, tiny whoop. And I built on an analog system. And I probably will be building something big, like a long range 6 or 7 inch in the future. But hey, thanks for watching. Talk to you later.